What's up, Titans? It's Mordecai from GamerTitan.com, and in this video we'll be going over the basics of the core editor. So let's go ahead and fire up the core editor. Now I opened a project which is just the default template for deathmatch. So first thing we'll see here is the inside of our game. So this is currently how our game looks, and what this window is called the viewport. Now, to be able to move around within the viewport, so if we click and hold the right mouse button, we can move our mouse around and we can look around. Now, just like in a lot of games that you're probably familiar with, if we want to move around within the world, we hold right click and we click W to go forward, we click S to go backwards, A to go left, D to go right, Q to go down, and E to go up. So this is how you can move around within the game world, so you can see how different things are within your world. And with this, there's a setting up at the top right next to the publish button here called Edit Game Camera Settings. And so if we go ahead and open this, this allows us to change different settings within our camera. So if we wanted, we could go faster throughout the world. So I'll go ahead and set that to 28. And as you can see, I'm much quicker and can move around the world much quicker. So these settings will be important. So when you're wanting to just go from one side of the map to the other, or whatever you're planning on doing, you can get there quicker. There's also other ways to move around the map, which I'll go ahead and show you, but just be familiar with these settings if you're trying to, for example, do some 3D modeling or do some very specific changes that require little micro movements. You'll want to set these quite low so you can do that. So I mentioned another way to move around the world. So if we, while we're in the viewport, if we click on anything within the viewport, we can select it. So as you can see, I'm selecting these different walls and stuff. So another hotkey to know is if I wanted, I could press F and it'll teleport me to wherever I have clicked. So this is useful if you are wanting to move around your game world quickly. Now, another window to talk about is the hierarchy. So as you can see, when I clicked on that, it selected in the hierarchy which wall it was. So if I select different ones, you can see that it's changing what I'm selecting in the hierarchy. So what the hierarchy is it is every single object and game asset within your game. And so, for example, say that I wanted to change this doorway for whatever reason, but I didn't necessarily know where it was in the game world. I could just go ahead and click on it and then click F and it'll get me to this doorway. So it's right here. So another thing to know is if you're wanting to look at an aerial view of your game world, an easy way, like one way you could do it is you could obviously hold E and go up, but another way to do it is if you click on an object, you right click and you can view the object from different angles. So if we go ahead and look at object from the top, it puts us perfectly above the object, and now we can look around the game world like this. So press F to go back, and I'm going to speed my camera back up a bit because it's a bit slow for me. So as we click on different objects within the world, the other thing we can notice is there's a properties tab right here. So if we make this a bit bigger, and for those of you that don't know, if you click on any window, you can drag it around and you can customize your layout however you feel. So we'll go ahead and make the properties tab bigger. So each thing we click, this properties tab is unique to whichever object we are clicking on. And so there's a few settings in here that you'll use quite a bit. So for example, say that we were wanting to place something close to this object right here. What we could do is we could right click, copy the position of this object, and it will copy where this is in the game world, and whatever object we place into the game world, we can paste that position and it will go in the center of this object. So we'll go ahead and copy that, and now I'll show you how to actually add stuff to your game world. So down at the bottom here is basically our asset tab. So in core content, this is all the different objects and different game, art objects, game objects, stuff like that, that core provides us that allows us to put these objects into our game world. So as an example, if we click on a 3D object and we click on this ball right here, we can simply click it, drag it into the game world, which is one way to do it. And as you can see, by holding the mouse button, I can move this ball around the viewport wherever I want to place it. So say that I placed it right there. Another way to place it into the game world is to move it over to the hierarchy. And the difference is when you move something directly into the hierarchy, what it will do is, if we look right here, it placed it at the 0, 0, 0 coordinates position within your game world. So it's right in the center. So depending on what you're wanting to do, there may be different things. Sometimes you may want to put it here, sometimes you may want to put it in the hierarchy. But once it's in our game world, how do we actually manipulate the object? So as you can see, as I'm clicking the two different balls here, it brings up these arrows. So on the position here, we can see that X is red. So X is this line here. So as you can see, if I click on this red arrow and I move it on the right hand side within the properties, it's moving the position of the X coordinates. Same thing is true with Y, it's the green arrow. Same thing is true with Z, which is the blue arrow. So when you first select an object, up at the top left here is the translation tool, which is what we're using. And so there's a few other tools that allow us to manipulate objects within the world. And so this is the translation. We can also do rotation, and we can do scale. So the hotkeys for these are, if we're clicking on an object and we're not clicking on our mouse, like we're not holding right click, we can click W, which is this tool here. We can click E, which is to rotate the object, and we can click R, which allows us to scale the object based on its different axes. So for example, say that we wanted to make the ball longer, but just on the x-axis, we can grab it and we could stretch it out. This is also true that if in the middle there's this white box here, if we go ahead and click on that and then move our mouse up, it will scale the ball up, and if we move it back down, it scales the ball down. So as you can see, it's scaling it, and on our scale right here, it's showing in our properties tab what that scale is. So say that we got our ball to whatever size that we were looking for, we can go ahead and copy the scale, click on this ball, paste the scale, and move it up, and they'll be the same size. So that's quite helpful if you're trying to change different objects and they're a little bit different. So as you can see, like this is just a wall, this is a wall, but it also has a cutout here for our windows. So if we wanted to do different scaling for the walls, we could actually do that. We could just scale one and then copy the scale over to the other objects that we were wanting to clone that to. So one other thing to note here is we can see that this ball's in the ground and this one is a little bit in the ground as well. So another cool thing that Core offers is if we drag this up a bit and then we click End on the keyboard, it will keep moving it down until it hits the ground. Now, another thing to notice is when I'm doing movements with that, it's just going down at a set amount. So if we scroll back up, you can see that it's going down at little increments. So what we can do is right now snap to grid is on. If we turn that off, we can move things around differently. So for example, it would be better with rotation. So with snap to grid on, I have it set to 90 degrees. And so if I try and rotate this, it'll be hard to tell the ball. So actually, let's go ahead and click on something like this. So because it's set to 90 degrees, if I move this at all, it's going to rotate it at a 90-degree angle. So if we turn off snap to grid, this allows us to get more precise movements. And then also if we need, we can turn snap to grid back on and change what the increase and decrease values are. So if we only wanted to move it a quarter, we could do that as well. So we'll go ahead and turn that back off, reset that to 90, we'll delete this object, get rid of this, and get rid of this. So as you can see in our world right now, a lot of our walls are not very appealing. We have shadows being rendered from the lighting up there, but our walls don't look that great. So within our core content, another one that you'll be using quite frequently is what's called materials. So materials are essentially textures. And so if we click on materials, down here is all the various materials that Core currently offers. We can also do some custom properties within these materials to kind of tailor them to however we want. But in this video, we're just going to use some basic materials. So as an example, say that we wanted to put a cool texture on our walls. So we could just simply, just like throwing a 3D object into the world, we can click on the material and we can just simply hover our mouse over whatever object that we're wanting to texture this with and then release. And as you can see, it textured that wall for us. Now, doing this, we could spend a lot of time going around and individually putting this on each wall. But another way to do it is if we go into the hierarchy and we type wall, we can press Control A and select all the walls and then drag this onto the walls. And now it is on every wall. Now you'll still notice that, for example, these windows within our wall are not textured, and that's because they are actually a different model. So if we close this out, they're called window. So we would want to do the same for window if we wanted them to be the same texture. Now, one thing that's really cool is Core has what's called a smart material. And so what smart materials do is no matter which object you're texturing, it tries to line it up with everything else in the world. And so it makes it look like this is all just one wall. So if we click on a wall, not every texture is set to a smart property. So usually, let's see if I do this. Okay, so it's called a smart material, sorry. So to give you a demonstration of why that's important, if we make all of these a grass texture, but we uncheck smart material, you'll notice that it doesn't look like it's lined up as much. It's kind of hard to tell in the grass, but if you look, there's like these little lines, and that's because it's individually texturing each of these pieces with different settings, and a smart material automatically fixes that problem, which is great for, if we go back here, it's great for when you are texturing objects that don't move. But if we go back and place a ball back into our world real quick and throw a smart material on it, actually, let's go ahead and put, don't mind this for just a second, I'm just making it so we can make this ball move. So I'm throwing it in what's called a client context, which then allows me to add physics to this ball real quick. And just making sure, oh, smart material wasn't on, so as you can see, as I drag it through space, the material is staying static, yet the ball is moving, so it makes it look like the material is moving on the ball. So that's something to note, that if your object is going to be moving, like if it's an piece of equipment that's going to be attached to your character, stuff like that, you don't want to use a smart material. You're going to want to use smart materials only really on static items. So we'll go ahead and exit out of that. So there's a lot of different materials or a lot of different objects that are available to us by default within Core. As you can see, we have different effects, decals, audio, different skyboxes, and then UI, etc. But also there is what's called community content. And community content is objects and scripts and stuff like that that other creators made within Core and then decided to share it. And so if you want, you can add any of these assets that other creators have shared and add them directly into your game world. So as an example, if we go ahead and click on import these Star Wars blasters, Ripper produced these. So if we go ahead and click on import, click yes, and save our game, it will then import the object. And if we double click on the Star Wars blaster, it has all the different objects that Ripper has created. And so if we click and drag, we could drag the lightsaber into our world and it's within our game. So if we scroll here, we can see that it's a Lego lightsaber type looking thing. So it's pretty neat. And so that's true with if you wanted to add anything to your game that you're not necessarily sure on how to create yourself, you can look through the community content and go ahead and import different things. So like I've made a bike and stuff like that. It's not very good. I was just testing out, importing or creating my own things. And so with this, it allows awesome collaboration between core creators, because say that you make something cool and you're willing to share it, you can share it within the community. So to show you how to do that just real quickly, let's go ahead and throw a ball and then we'll copy it. And just like in a lot of other programs, you can copy and paste stuff as well. So by pressing Control C and then Control V, we've pasted a ball on top of our other ball, so now we can move it. And so if we add both of these together, so we can click on both of the balls, and then we can do Control G and it throws them both in a group. And we can then right click on the group and create a template from this. And by creating a template, it allows us to reuse this object over and over and over within our game. So we go ahead and click it as a template. We'll just name it ball. Click new template. And now when it's blue, it's considered a template, and we can right click on it or actually we have to go into our project, sorry. So if we go into our project content, this is all of the different assets that are within your game world. And so these are your templates and all this stuff, and a lot of this was generated from the wireframe that we're using. So as you can see, we have our basic rifle, which is the rifle that our character starts with, the game state, our bullets and all that stuff. But now that we made a template, we'll have a thing called ball. And so if we drag this into our world, we can see that it is from a template of this. And so if we right click, we can click publish to community content. So we'll save it, and it allows us to publish this asset. Now I'm not going to actually do that because no one's going to really want to use this, but that's how you publish things to the community content. So because of that, it adds for awesome collaboration. So going back to our project content, when you have something that's networked, so for example, if we do a preview real quick, the rifle that we have is networked, right? So it's spawning the object on our player from a template. So to show you something, if we grab the basic rifle and we throw it into our game world, and just very quickly we're going to extend the barrel. And there's better ways to do that to make it look a lot nicer than that, but I'm just trying to show you real quickly that if we spawn in, this rifle is the same rifle that of the one that we have on us right now, but because we didn't update the network template, they're two different objects. So if we go back into the game world and we click on the rifle, click on the basic rifle, we right click on it and we click update template from this, it's going to make every one of these guns in our game with this extended rifle from the new template. So we'll go ahead and do update template, and now when we spawn in, now our rifle has this extended barrel. And so that makes it very helpful that if you're trying to make edits to different things, so in this great example, the gun, for example, we can click on the one that's floating in the world and go ahead and delete it. And then because we already upgraded our template, now every rifle that is created in our game now looks like that. So that makes it very easy to modify different weapons and modify different things that we're going to be using multiple times throughout our game. It makes a lot of sense to make a template from it. And then it also allows you, one thing I forgot to mention, is in community content, these are assets that are shared publicly. And so another thing you could do is now say that we have our basic rifle and we, for whatever reason, want to use it in another game of ours in the future, but we don't want others to have access to it. One way to do that is to publish it to the community, but select private. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to have different objects on the community content that only you have access to. And so if for whatever reason you're trying to test different things, it makes it very helpful if you were trying to 3D model, like a weapon, but you didn't want all this background noise. You could do it in another game and save it, or say that you made something that you feel like you want to use on another game. It just makes it very easy to create once and use across all of your different games. So those are pretty much those tabs. And now once again, I kind of already mentioned this, but you can drag and move things around to your liking. And also you can click on a tab and you can drag it elsewhere. So if we wanted, we could put the community tab over here. And so that makes it very helpful, like once you kind of get used to how you want your layout to be. So if we click on view, there's also a few other things that are not actually default. And so, for example, one that I use a lot is the event log. So if we click on event log, it just puts it in its own window, but if we wanted, we could put it here, and we'll drag this back. And the event log is used for scripting. Now, in this video, we're not going to get into scripting. We'll be doing that in future videos. I just wanted to show you how to kind of manipulate your editor and kind of get familiar with all the different aspects within the editor. Now, one other thing to talk about, and I know I'm going over a lot of different things. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments down below, and I will definitely try to answer them and also use that information to make future videos better. But the other thing to note here is throughout this entire time that we've been looking through our game world, we have this message banner up here, we have our little health bar down here, and all this. And what this is it's the UI. And so if we ever wanted to make edits to the UI, up here at the top there's UI editing mode. If we go ahead and click on that, this orange box appears, and this allows us to, instead of clicking on objects in space, we can click and move our UI elements around. So a great example would be if I exit out of this real quick and I start a preview real quick, we see that we have our health bar in the bottom left. So if I exit out of that, we're in UI, grab the health bar, and I can just drag it, say like right here, and do preview again. Our health bar now is right there. So another helpful thing is if you don't want to see the UI, if we go up here, we can go to UI settings. Now this is true with every object in space, is there's this little eye right here, and what this allows you to do is if you click on it, it'll hide. So if it's not highlighted, it's hiding any objects within this folder, and in this case it's the UI settings, so it's hiding the entire UI, which kind of cleans up our viewport for when we're wanting to manipulate different things. And this is true for if we wanted to hide the entire world. Now the lighting and everything is within the map, so for example if we just wanted to hide one of the bases, we could do that and individually hide walls. I'm not really sure where this wall is. This is a doorway actually, so click on it, click F, and we can hide it. Now it's still in the game world, so if we press preview, it's still there, but in the editor it disappears, and it's because it's hidden. So next to that is our lock, and so what this does is if we lock it, even though we can't even click on it, so that makes it very useful. So for example, if we were trying to edit these stairs, there's the possibility that we accidentally click the wall behind us, and so if we lock think that locks the entire map. So if we were to lock this individual wall right here, and we wanted to edit these stairs, now we can't click this wall, but we're clicking something behind it, so you would want to make sure that you can lock all the objects that are behind space. And so, for example, if we lock the entire map folder, that would be helpful if we were trying to edit something new in space that we added. So if we add this ball, there's no way we can click anything other than the ball. And so that is how you use the lock function, or lock, in the editor. I think that pretty much covers everything. We already kind of went over how to publish your game in our previous video. Just a few other settings here. If you want, you could also put a list view to see more objects. I used the catalog view because it's just easier to see, but in future videos we'll be going over a lot more things within this. Just understand that with the default view, or the default layout of the editor, and just to show you also, if you ever mess something up, you can click on view up here and click reset to default, and so it defaults it back to how it looks. So to remember, anything that you're wanting to add to the game world is really going to be down below here. So core content is stuff that core provides us. Community content is stuff that other creators have created and decided to share with other creators to allow them to use within their game. And then anything that is already in our game is under the project content folder. Once again, you understand the viewport, and anything that is in our hierarchy is in our game as well. Now, I know I kind of went quickly over the properties tab. This is a very important tab because it has a lot of different options, and these options are going to change based on the object that you're clicking. So if we add the rifle back in, if we wanted to make edits to the rifle, you can see that when I click on the ball, it just has these properties for the ball, but if I click on the rifle, excellent, click on the ground, click on advanced rifle, now we can actually make edits to the rifle itself. So this has different options that we can change the damage that the rifle does, how far it shoots, how quickly it shoots. And so just to give you a quick demonstration of that, if we run up to this rifle and we pick it up, we can see that it's shooting at a pretty decent rate. It looks like about 5 per second, 5.5 per second. So if we change this to 30, it only has a 30 round clip, so it's going to shoot its entire clip in 1 second. Oops, what did I do here? Shots fired per second. We'll just do 15. Click on the viewport, go to preview again, pick up the rifle. It's not quite doing 15 per second because there is a delay in between each shot, but it's shooting much quicker. And so once again, if we wanted to add that to our game, with that gun having those settings, we would just update our template and we could use it through all of our different characters, or if we wanted to spawn multiple versions of these guns throughout the world so people could pick them up like a better gun. So within our game right now, we start with a basic rifle. That's considered an advanced rifle. Even though it looks the same, it has one extra feature on it that, like, if we're right clicking, nothing happens on this gun, but if we pick this one up and we right click, we can do this zoom in. So that's what's the difference with the advanced rifle. So that's pretty much it. There's a few other settings or a few other elements within the editor up here that we'll be going over in future videos, but just to go over them real quickly, if you do know scripting and you want to add a new script, you can either use the script generator or create a new script. You would name the script and we'll just do test, and now it is in our project content. So we go to test and here's our script, and if we double click it, it opens our editor in game and we can go ahead and do our scripting and then click and drag the script wherever it needs to go. Another button up here is the terrain generator. Now if we, this might crash my computer because I'm filming while doing this, but if we click on create new generator or new terrain, we have different options on the type of terrain that we would like to create. We can do rolling hills, click generate. And if we scroll out here, because we have this platform, we have the terrain. And just like any other object, if we want, we can throw material on it real quick. So let's make it green. And within our game world, we should actually, let's move it up a bit. Even though it's going to be in the middle of our game, we can run up this mountain real quick and we can see that it's in our game. And so there's a lot of different features within the terrain editor. I'm going to be doing a separate video on that. In fact, I'm going to be doing individual videos on explaining in detail each one of these different settings and different tabs and how to use this better. This video was just set up in such a way that kind of gets you familiar with all the different options and just some of the basics. So hopefully it's helpful. Once again, if you have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up. And if you want more core videos in the future, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Talk to you guys next time.